So we are live again. We are all live. And wow, this has been a very long journey. This has been a long journey since the 3rd of August. And today we are on the 1st of September. This is the beginning of Heritage Month in South Africa. We've been celebrating legacy, heritage, achievement, tenacity, resilience, and whatever you can think about as when it comes to our Black history. And today, it's a very particular day. I have my two sisters with me again, and this time, Sis Cornelia is joining from within. She will introduce herself before we get in. So we're very happy that she's here. My sister Jamila is here as well. And before we get started, before you introduce yourself, sisters, before I reintroduce myself, I wish that we observe a minute of silence, for our fallen hero. Chadwick Boseman passed on, went ahead too soon, way too soon. But he left behind a great legacy for us with the Black Panther movie. And we can't talk about Black legacy in the diaspora without remembering him. So may we just close our eyes for 1 minute and send him to the land of the ancestors, and may they receive him. So thank you very much. That minute was for all our ancestors who have gone ahead, young and old, even those who have been claimed by the coronavirus. It is for all the heroes and sheroes in the hospitals and wherever they are. Some of friends and loved ones who have passed away, we remember them today before we get into this conversation. And this is almost the last but not the last conversation in the August series of book launches and conversations. Tomorrow we still have one. But for today, we're staying here today with my two sisters. My name is Ankreta Beatrice Achaleke, the publisher of the Africa for Smart Kids, the author of the Africa for Smart Kids book series and publisher of GloBUNTU Books. It is my single pleasure to look outside of the continent into the diaspora, specifically to Europe, where we are out looking for our legacy. We want it, we want to claim it, we want to own it, we want to honor it, we want to celebrate it. I can't be happier to have two great sisters in the studio and some sisters and brothers out there. Pauline, we have you in our minds today. You're always part of this conversation. Molatelo, we have you in mind. All of you and our young authors, we have you in mind as we start this conversation. So may I ask my studio guests to introduce themselves. Let's start with our sister, Sassy Fine. I'm not pronouncing it.
Hi there.
Please go ahead, take it and introduce yourself, please.
Greetings from Sassy Fine Cornelia Henschel, based in Germany. I am very, very honored to be part of this panel today. We have such a huge continent with such rich history, and our sister has done a great, great job so far. She's been educating me this month, and I am really mind-blowing what she's doing. Yes, I am in the African diaspora in Germany, and we have finally, after a lot of years of hard work, we finally linking all the countries together with each other, and we are just making change. I am so excited about this phase we are in, and good stuff is happening. I notice it every day just being part of your panel, my sister. You're great. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Together we are greater, and that's the essence of this conversation, that we expand our greatness. We expand and build our greatness across the spaces where we're in, whether lockdown or not lockdown. We are not intimidated. On the contrary, we are empowered. Sis Jamila, take it away. Our sister Cornelia is in with us today. Take it away.
And I can't say how pleasing this is. So for a change, it's not just Ankweta and one other sister, but today we are more powered. So, Josephine, welcome. It's good to be the three musketeers today.
Oh, good. Yeah.
My name is Jamela Robertson. I'm based here in Johannesburg, South Africa. And as Cecifin has said, I am just so excited that we're going to be really talking about the legacy of people of African descent in Europe. And this couldn't have come. You see, this launch is so timely. Today being the first day of Legacy Month in South Africa. So this is so timely. I don't know if it was planned, Akweta, but it's so timely, and it will start us off very well, imparting historical knowledge to our people, especially knowledge about the legacy of people in the diaspora historically. And as another thing that's interesting about this conversation today is that we have a sister who is in the diaspora. But unlike the people in your book, she's not lost. She wasn't stolen. I don't know, am I speaking out of term? But she is more. Were you stolen, my sister? I don't want to believe that. She is in a better place where she can connect with us in the motherland, and we discuss and we share experiences and we share knowledge. This is good. I'm happy. Thank you.
Jamila, I'm alive and kicking. I'm not stolen.
She's too powerful to be stolen. She can be, because she's too powerfully African to be stolen by anyone. Wherever
My
she
genes
is.
are too strong.
And I think she was born in South Africa. Why am I speaking on her behalf? And she was born. She has something very powerful in this conversation, because having been born in the continent where we're talking about and living now in the continent that we're looking out to in this conversation makes it even more powerful. Sis, tell us about your roots. Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, I was born from a mom and dad, people of color. Yes, of course, you can see my weird skin color. Yeah. So I come from my mother was a woman from Cape Town, born and bred in Cape Town. My dad came from a very activist family, and a family who is in the South African books of history. My great-great-granddad was a missionary, Francis Finn, who came those years as a missionary to KwaZulu-Natal. So I was brought up as always, I had a life as a foreigner. In my school, people used to say to me, oh yeah, you don't come from Cape Town, because of my surname. Yeah. And it never bothered me. I just lived my life the way it should be. And when I got older, I realized, oh my Lord, this family Finn has quite a history behind the name. And when I got older, I started talking to my uncles. I started talking to the rest of the family. And then I realized why I'm also such an activist in the apartheid system, why I'm so unmovable. My uncle Morris Finn he only died a few years ago. He was one of the big movers and shakers in KwaZulu-Natal who stood with his own life to fight against this apartheid from the apartheid system. And a lot of what I do back in Europe as well, there's sometimes I say, are you crazy doing all these things? But it's in my genes, it's in my DNA. It's something that I can't get away with, So I do my work, what I'm doing in this diaspora, getting all these different countries also together. We are making change. And going back to my family, the family history goes back to Francis Finn, who married into the Finn family in KwaZulu-Natal. And part of the area, land, Port Shepstone area in KwaZulu-Natal was given from Chaka Zulu to the Finn family as well. And up till today, the Finn family is actively, at this moment, actively fighting to get part of the land back, which was given to them, which belongs to them. And it's an ongoing struggle, you know, who belongs to what. And, you know, everybody knows about this land claims history. And this is very actual stuff, which is very much still alive and will be going into the history books of South Africa yet again, you know. And I am, like Jamila said, we're having somebody who's not dead or taken away or written in the books yet. I am still very much alive and being part of this movement. And you know, Beatrice is not even, she is not even aware of what is she doing. She is doing such a huge thing for Africa. I was one of the children who fought against the history class in school. When my history teacher, Mr. Lawrence Masimi now, he would have such a big laugh because I used to fight, I don't have to write this exam. I don't want to write this exam. This stuff that's written in the books doesn't belong to our history. I don't want to read this, you know. And he kept on saying, Finn, just keep quiet. You have to read it. You have to do it because you have to get marks. So you go to the next level, yeah. And when Beatrice started doing this, pushing it into Africa and putting down our history about not just as South Africa, but Africa, she has done us all so good because no one ever had the guts up till today to do something so huge what she started tackling. And thanks to her daughter who has given her also the push to say, Mom, you've got to do this, you know, because I'm sitting with the same situation where I am from Africa, and when I don't eat certain stuff which is given to me, they say, oh, but that's African, you know. I say, I come from South Africa, and we have black people, we have white people, we have Indians, but we are all South Africans, you know. We a whole rainbow nation. We have been mixed with, oh, we didn't know. And this is part of our history, how we all, I come from Cape Town, so everybody came around the harbor of Cape Town. So we are really big mixed breed, you know. And when I look at stuff that I do, it's normal because it's in my genes, because my family came from Scotland, yeah. My great father came from Scotland, but I'm very much African. Africa runs through my veins, and sometimes people try to stop me from where I come from, and I say no. I come from South Africa. We have freedom of speech. That does not mean that we have to keep quiet. Yes?
Yes. Yes, we're not keeping quiet. Not anymore. Not ever. Amandla.
Oh, yes.
We're not keeping quiet. Yes, we're going to go into the conversation. I'm very happy about that background. It just shows us how diverse our legacy is. Our legacy is not just in Africa. It is not just in Europe. It is not just in America. It is not just in the Caribbean. It's not just in Asia. It is in the world. And wherever you are in the world, we have traces of our legacy. And the pandemic has given us the time to reflect, and to realize that it is so important that we go out for that legacy. Because when this pandemic is over, we want to be more self-conscious people. We want to be more African conscious people, Black conscious people. We want to be in all our diversity and mixture. We want to be conscious of who we are, and most of all, aware of our vast and rich legacy all over the world. So I see online, our sister Bernice is here. Bernice, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're joining from. We see you. Thank you for coming to look out for our legacy this time in Europe. So, sisters, before we get into it, Sis Jamila, what is on your mind when you went through the manuscript? You went through it. What is on your mind before we take our 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 viewers into the manuscript as usual, what stood up in your mind when you went through? I mean, we have 46, 48. I picked 48 profiles. There's so many of them, but I picked 48. So what was on your mind?
I actually, excuse me, Cornelia,
Yes.
who's interviewing who here?
We are having a conversation.
We are the three musketeers, so I don't know how we're going to juggle this through the hour.
Whose book are we talking about here? I'm asking the questions. Remind her, you and I are asking the questions, and she will answer the questions.
Sis, go ahead, ask the question. If you don't want to answer the question, you're my big sister. I will respect that. But
okay, no. That was on a lighter note. We gotta laugh sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
And we must make our own laughter. It's healthy. No, but to answer your question, I mean, for me, and that's the question I will throw back to you, because like with the books that we have launched together and other books that I wasn't necessarily part of the launch. You look at them and then you get something before you even, just by looking at the cover, something else hits you. So there is some kind of silent message in these books. And this one was no different. I looked at it and I was thinking, so many unsung heroes. Surprise, surprise. Heroes and heroines from Africa in Europe. So many of them that are unsung. And as you say, you have dug out 46. But with, again, like with all your books, you have to stop somewhere. And there could be more, hundreds of them. But this gives us a start. This opens our eyes in terms of how we have contributed to the world. And I was sitting there thinking, I said this to Cornelius in the beginning, saying, you know what? Looking into the past, we didn't know about this, but it ends here because now we know. And now we have sisters like Josephine in the diaspora who will not repeat this history. As of today, as of now, we're going to know about our heroines in other parts of the world. We're starting with Europe, and we have you there, Cornelia. You know what? I'm Shangan. I will forever say your name wrong. My people will forgive me for using them.
Say it to me in Afrikaans, is this okay?
I call you Cornelius, Cornelia, everything. Don't bear with me. Yeah, the point I'm making is the good thing about what Beatrice has done for us is that now we know it stops here. History will never repeat itself, because now our eyes are open. And that was one of the things that I have noted when I looked in this book. It was what, we almost lost all this legacy. But guess what? You cannot do things in the dark and hope they will never come out in the light. These things were done in the dark. And here we are unearthing it, bringing it to light. You can never destroy what you never created. We were created by the creator of this universe. It is that universal wisdom that will bring things out to light. And this is what is happening today through you, Akweta. But I am sure you are inspiring many people to join your train in unearthing this knowledge. So that was some of the things that just hit me when I looked at the cover of this book.
Great stuff.
It's not my train, it is our train. We're all in this train, and we're taking our great-great-grandparents, our ancestors, we're taking our mothers and sisters and aunties and neighbors, we're taking our children, the born and the unborn. And that takes me to the quote from Amilcar Cabral when he said, you must act as if you answer only to your ancestors. You answer only and only to your ancestors and to your unborn children. And I think
Yes.
this is, yes, sis?
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to mention something just to finish what I was saying, because I know I forgot that part. And that part also hit me before I opened the book, believe you me or not. I thought this, and then I opened the book. I got the quote you put in the book from John Henry Clark, who said the cruelest thing, slavery and colonialism, and I put apartheid in brackets, did to the Africans was to destroy their memory of what they were before foreign contact. And I sat there and thought, you know what? That's exactly what I was thinking. But what remains is that they didn't win. They didn't win because it doesn't matter how long it took. Here we are again, unearthing the truth. So that's what I wanted to say actually in the beginning. Thank you for bearing with me.
Yes, Sis Cornelia, you want to add anything there before we go straight into the book?
We are such a force to be reckoned with, and when I think of all the attacks I had on my life so far, and I look at it from a positive point of view, and I say, because I have the African blood in my DNA, and I am forced to speak out, to make change. I am here for a purpose. I'm not just here because my mom and dad fell in love and they had me to bring out a fin. But I always believed that I'm here for a purpose. And when I look at the African Women Organization right now, they are women who has said as well, you know, we are from different countries, but we are following your journey. We are joining you. You are joining us. And it's by time that our children has to know the truth. Like my daughters will look at this video and they will say, oh man, what is my mom doing here again? You know, but I've got I've got two beautiful grandchildren, and they should know the real history of where grandma comes from, you know. And my daughter she was a 1994 child, yeah, and she took her time to go into Google to read about apartheid, apart from what I told her about the system and what it has done to our families. And I think it's so important to have these books from you, Beatrice, that we should leave this legacy behind for our grandchildren. Our time is clicking. We're all over our 100, you know. So it's our duty to leave that for our grandchildren, not just for our children, but for our grandchildren. It's our duty to leave this legacy behind. It looks a little bit crazy that we on all the time and we talk about it, but it's so important that our children know their identity. They know where they come from, irrespective of where they are living at the moment or where they were born, because it doesn't matter where you're born, you have African blood in your veins. Yeah. So our children don't have this identity problem. We have to tell them. How should they know about it? We should not leave this information that other people tell them. It's our duty to do this. Yeah. And I thank you so much again.
And I thank you too. So if you're out there and you're wondering what are these African women talking about, we are talking about the legacy of people of African descent in Europe. And as usual, when we start talking, we realize how bright this legacy is. And sometimes we go overboard. Sometimes we bring in a whole lot of other aspects that may not be in the book that we're talking about. And the essence of this conversation is actually to connect the dots to all those angles where our is, wherever it is, so that maybe one of the angles may speak to you. You know, if something in the book is not speaking to you, one of the conversations, the aspect that my studio guests bring in may speak to you. And the truth is that we want to get out of this pandemic situation more savvy Africans. We want to be more knowledgeable about who we are, where we come from, so that we can better build where we are going to. And I'm always honored to have my sisters with me in the studio. I just realized that we never had a brother in the studio, so we must change that. So that said, let's go quickly. Geraldine, you're here. Good morning to Washington. I hope the White House is still alive, and I hope you're doing fine. Welcome to Africa, the continent we call home. And let's go now to Europe. So, girls, whether we're going by plane or not, we're going this time in a book. We're locked down. We can't fly, so we're going in a book to Europe, and we're going to visit each corner of Europe to look for our ancestors. Now, let's get straight to the manuscript and go through it again very quickly, as we always do. So you can see some of the people that we all must know. So this is, so you know, the book we're talking about. It's Untold History 1, because this history needs to be told. It's been told in many places, but we can't tell it often enough. So for the moment, it's still untold, and we're trying to tell it loud and loud. So I'm going to go very quickly down to the images. The table of contents gives you all the 48 people that are in this book. Some of them will really, really surprise you. The foreword is written by my brother, Simon Inu. And him and I, we have been into a lot of trouble in Austria, organizing the Black community and going right up to the European Parliament and trying to work with the Commission. So this is the legacy of my 20 years in Europe. I needed to go back there from Africa to see how it was, the things that I did not know when I was still in Austria. So I was very happy when my brother Simon wrote the foreword to this book. And he says, when I was asked to write the foreword to this insightful book, my first reaction was that of happiness of being part of a marvelous adventure. On second thought, however, I felt so insufficient in the face of the many profiles of impressive people of African descent featured in this book, who contributed to building the European continent as we know today. So I'll just stop there and go straight to the book. You can get the rest of what he says. This is someone who is very active in Austria and in Europe as a journalist. So he currently runs a radio station in Austria. He's the manager of the diversity or whatever at the radio station. And in all my books, you always find quotes. And if you see me speaking too fast, it's because I just want to walk quickly through this book. It's really, really intensive, but to bundle it in a few seconds and a few minutes for this conversation is always a challenge for me. But I try to do it. So we always have those quotes. And as my sister Jamila rightfully said, there's another quote there by Chinua Achebe. The last 400-500 years of European contact with Africa produced a body of literature that represented Africa in a very bad light and Africans in a very lurid terms. The reasons for this had to do with the need to justify slave trade and slavery. I think when we try to find reasons why African history is portrayed the way it is, we may understand the importance of unveiling it from our perspective today. And Professor Henry Louis Gates says, let's face it, think of Africa and the first image that comes into our mind are war, poverty, famine, and flies. So I don't want to continue that quote. It just tells us, he's just recapping the impression that the world has about us, which is wrong. So he says, how many of us really know anything at all about its true great and the true great ancient African civilizations, which in their days were just as splendid and glorious as anyone on the face of the earth? So we should ask ourselves some of those questions. So our usual reader's guide, it gives you quite a lot of hints and a lot. And now we go. Maybe you've heard about Abram Petrovich Cannibal. I read that his origin was in Cameroon, therefore I was very happy. But you can read Russian history without coming across Petrovich Cannibal. So I decided to start with him because you can't avoid him. And as we go, we have had people who have been in the military. This is as far back as 1883. This guy was one of the most powerful guys in the military force in Turkey. He fought against the First and the Second World War, and most of his family members are in the military as well. They copied from him. So you see, many people know Alexander Dumas, Senior. It was a family of writers. The family of the Dumas was a very powerful family of writers. And you see Senior and Junior, and you can't talk about European literature without coming across them and at their own times. This is Alexander Pushkin. You can't talk about Russia. He's said to be the father of literature in Russia, basically. And this was a guy of African descent, and we need to own that. The Medici in Italy, I mean, he owned an imperium. When you talk about business and finances in Italy, you can't go without mentioning this family. And that was as far back as 1510. We just have to, keep these dates in our minds and realize how important our traces in Europe are. I'm not going to go through everything. This is my alma mater from Austria, Angelo Soliman. He had a very tragic history. He was taken from Africa, was sold into different houses of the royalties in Europe, the monarchy, and ended up in Austria. He thought the children of the Emperor of Austria, the Austro-Hungarian Empire at the time, he was one of the most powerful people in town. He connected with almost everyone. He was an educator, even though he could also work as a domestic servant. He was just amazing. And the tragic story about him is that when he died, all the glory was stripped off him. He was stuffed. They stuffed him and put him out in the museum for people to see. And his daughter Josefina Soliman fought so many years for his father, the remains of his father, to be honored, to be taken out of the museum. And it was a very, very emotional and tragic fight. I don't think that she ever succeeded. So this is some of the tragedies of people of African descent who made it in Europe, but who, when they passed on, they were stripped back to nothing, as if all that they had achieved during the time that they were in Europe didn't mean anything. We have people of African descent who fought wars. Some of them went from the plantations. They paid their way by doing petty jobs on the ships. Some of them served on the street. They did all what they could do to buy themselves off slavery and to be free and move to Europe or to places where they thought that they could realize themselves. Some of them were part of the abolition movement, and it's just how amazing how diverse their backgrounds are. And this one is there was no face, just the grave, and I decided that we have to honor this El Negro. His body was taken away from somewhere in South Africa and exhibited. Imagine someone dies and the body is taken away and taken to Europe and exhibited in so many places, including Spain. And it was only when Nelson Mandela came into power, am I saying the right thing now, that they fought to bring back his remains, and he was buried somewhere in Botswana. So this is our history that we really need to know and claim. There are quite a lot of great intellectuals, scientists, and journalists in this book that you meet. They made it in Europe. And this one, George Augustus Paul Green, go on YouTube and you see him. This guy was a genius violin. He played the violin. He influenced Beethoven. He was a very good friend to Beethoven. And Beethoven even dedicated one of his classical musical pieces to him. But when they fell out, Beethoven decided to rededicate that piece to someone else, which I found to be very childish. But okay, that is history. We have people who fought for the Germans in the World War. We have people who fought in the liberation. This one, Hilarious, he was an Afro-German. He was killed very, very soon. He was not even up to 30 years old when he was killed in Germany. And you see all those amazing people. I think quite a lot of people know James Baldwin. James Baldwin lived mostly in France. He was very well connected with Maya Angelou, with the civil rights movement in the US, with Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. So I think it's a face that people will certainly know. If you see, this was the first a person of African descent in Europe, John Richard Archer, to become, he was the second Black mayor in Britain, the second Black mayor in the history of Britain. This was as far back as 1863. And I think we got to know that, just see the kind of things that he did in Europe. And Jose, I mean, I can't even tell you all of this. You just need to read the book. These guys were big in classical music and they played in philharmonicas, again, as far back as the 18th centuries, and it's powerful. So I decided to put in Joseph Morocco because he was anonymous. Someone just painted this picture. And for me, he represented all the Black people who worked in the households of the aristocrats in Europe, who, you spend your life taking care of other people's children and, being passed here and there and not really being noticed. And someone did this portrait of him. And I thought, I put him in there as a representation of those whose name we will never know, but who contributed greatly in building Europe. So you will see quite a lot of them. I think Josephine Baker, quite a lot of you will know what a source of entertainment in Europe. But this woman was a very, very powerful and very intellectual woman. You need to read her biography to see that she was not just, that woman that danced on stage and entertained people, and who was also considered to be a spy. So again, I can't tell you the story of every Black person in here, but you just have to read the book. But that of Mary Seacole, she was the first woman, Black woman, to in terms of nursing. She was a nurse. At her own cost, she wanted to go to she was very interested in medicine, and she wanted to go to the front when the wars break out, the First World War. And they refused her to go to the front to help people who were wounded because she was Black. So she decided to sponsor herself to go to the front, and she helped a lot of people. She helped treat a whole lot of war people who were wounded from the war. And I think this is so powerful. So this one, Mary Prince, was the very first formerly enslaved woman who fought against the abolition, and the first woman to put a petition in Parliament. The first woman to put a petition in Parliament in Great Britain. The first woman ever, not just Black woman, the first woman ever. Go do your research on her, and you will be amazed. So I'm just putting out all of this for you. Some of them, again, you will know them, some you will not know, but that is the reason why this book is here for you. We had Pierre Lejeune, who fought in the First World War. He was the first Black person to have a license to fly a military plane, and he's a World War I veteran. And when you read about him, he brought he was very instrumental during the World War I, and was shot down all the enemy planes, for the French. Unfortunately, he died in a plane crash after the war. After he survived the war, he was from Guadeloupe. So so those are some powerful histories. And then I went into religion, and I was so surprised, sisters, that in the Catholic Church we have had popes that were Black. They had African origin. So this one is Pope Calisius, and I got this one not from anywhere. I got them, if you follow the links that I share with you below every picture, I got them from documents of the Catholic Church. So this was as far back as 496 AD. He was a pope and was of African descent. Believe me. And Pope St. Matthias also is said to have been of African descent. You can see the picture as well. And he was a pope as far back as 314. So tell us about religion. Tell us about, I find it somehow interesting, because it's, for me, when we think that the missionaries came to Africa to bring us salvation or whatever they said, and then you go into the church and you realize there have been Black people there who have been in positions positions of influence. They were popes as far back as then. You're asking yourself the question, so what is right here? What is right? What is the history here? And you also realize that, now you ask yourself the question, in our time, when you look at all the popes in the Vatican, have you seen any Black person there? Do they talk about Black people who have been popes before? So you're asking yourself, where did history get stuck? What happened in the course of history? This one is the prince who left from Prince Akwasi. He went to the Netherlands, and he studied engineer. He was one of the first Black mining engineers. in Europe, and he did quite a lot of work in the Netherlands and also during the war for the Netherlands. So again, there's so many of them there. I don't want to read every profile for you. I just pick some of them that I think they're worth mentioning because their history is so outstanding. All the histories here, all the stories are so outstanding, but some of them are just, you just need to know them. I think Sarah Batman, we all know her. We know that she was taken from South Africa, from a Hottentot woman who was taken from South Africa. And her story is very tragic because she was taken and exposed and dehumanized and put into all the, put out for show to the public. People had to touch her. People had to, it's just so crazy. And even when she passed on, her remains were exposed in so many museums. And again, I think it was during the reign of Nelson Mandela that her body was brought back and buried properly in South Africa. And she's not the only one. When you read through the profile that I wrote for her, you realize that there were so many other Black people who were being taken around, like in zoos, like in public shows, and putting out there for people to see. And the intention was just to show the white race that Black people are less, they are less than the white race. It's really, really heartbreaking. So those are some other people from the church, people who have played an important role. I would like to pick on Saint Josephine Bakhita because she was taken into slavery when she was still very young from Sudan. She went through different families, Italian families, and then she landed in Europe and eventually became a Christian. And she was given the status of a saint, declared a saint in the year 2000. And quite often you don't hear, we hear about other saints, but you don't hear about her. And I wish that we don't say we don't hear about her, that we start talking about her because we now know her. Okay, so the story continues with amazing, brave people in Europe, amazing, brave people of African descent in Europe. You excuse me that, I give you half sentences. It's because I'm so full. I'm so full of this content, and to bundle it up in a few seconds is not an easy task. So, again, we come back to the power of me. You always do that at the end of each GloBUNTU book. And I think I'll stop that story for now and go to my sisters. We must be very full now. Let me take a breath and come back to you.
That was a lot. That was a lot. Yeah. The one picture which still disturbs my spirit until today is when we had our school outings to the museum in the gardens in Cape Town, and I used to ask these questions. Why must these people be on show here for us to have a look at? This is not the only people you get in South Africa. Why is only these people are taken to be laughed at, to be making a mock of as a statue, and be put in a museum? That disturbed my spirit so much. I will never ever forget this as a child, This is if you have a museum visit, you should actually have memories of a lot of great stuff that you've seen, something that you've learned. But when I think of my museum visits, then I just picture these people who has been put down there for tourists and people to have a look at. And I'm so glad after Nelson Mandela came out of the prison, this was stopped. And it was taken out and it was banned, And I'm thinking to myself, who gives you the right to do something like that to another human being? It's inhuman. It's inhuman what was done there. And we, as the children of apartheid, we still have it. Listening to you, showing us that this bad comes out again, and this bad memories like your museum visits that you used to have as a school child. Mind-blowing history, what you've given to us there again, yet, Beatrice, great stuff. Thank you.
Can I add to that? I think Cornelia we now understand why they did that. It was exactly for the purpose of making us feel that we are not human enough. It was intended to. This is the cruelty that we talked about in the beginning. And you don't look at this stuff without really, really feeling sad. But knowing you and I and every African person, we are much bigger than that. That's why today we are not. I actually read a quote by a white girl somewhere saying, we should be grateful that Black people are not looking for revenge. They're looking for equality. Because if we were to turn things around, it wouldn't be nice. And we are much bigger than that. We are promoting humanity. We are digging out this history because we do not want it to repeat itself.
Yes.
And many people, the oppressors always fear because they think you're going to do to them what they did to you. And I think, you know, in our discussions with Ankweta and all the time, we have to stop and say, you know what, we are bigger than that. And it hurts. It hurts. It cannot stop hurting. I mean, from what you're saying, almost every museum before 1994 here in South Africa, you would see how we were portrayed as gorillas, how we were shown how to tame us by making us witness the killing of our own families. You know, cruel stuff that you can't imagine how a human being can do to another. And another thing that hits me with this book and others, I mean, I can't say this one book because you get that from the books that Ankweta writes. It's the lies, the blunted lies that our history is portrayed. Again, we understand why. It was to justify all the atrocities that were done to us, to make it look okay. You know, I mean, the lies go from saying we don't have intellectual abilities to hiding our intellectual abilities. Again, for the same purpose. Are you surprised when our children, young and impressionable as they are, don't feel 100% proud to have African heritage? Hence we are here having discussion because it is upon us to mentor them until they get to a point where they are 100% proud that they have African heritage. So it comes from hundreds and hundreds of years of playing with our minds, and unfortunately it got to a point where some of us got to believe it. If you look around us, we got to believe us. With Ankweta, we usually say we are still getting out of this colonized mentality. You cannot snap out of it in one day or after reading one book. You read, you engage, you know, it will take, I hope not too long, but we are getting there. I want to point out something, Ankweta, and I hope you talk to this. Maybe 2 or 3 things I want to point out. The first thing I want to point out relates to George Orguatas, who worked with Beethoven. You know, it reminds you the story of rock and roll, Elvis Presley being the father. But when you dig out the history of rock and roll, you see old women singing rock and roll in train stations, you know, before the 19th century. So it makes you wonder who came up with what. But yet again, we know. And the issue of Beethoven, who is a renowned, you know, orchestra musician, however they say it, as opposed to George Orguatas. And then another thing that hit me hard in the face is the story of Mary Seacole, who existed in 1805 to 1881, who nursed people, who initiated her own nursing, taught herself how to heal people. You of course, we know why she is not written about. And now history teaches us that Florence Nightingale was the one who initiated nursing. And I look at the years, Florence Nightingale was around between 1820 and 1910. That is after that is after 1805. Do you know what I mean? And when people like you, Anqueta, dig out this history, I said this previously in other books, that when you dig out this kind of history, people make you feel bad. At least I have, without having to write a book, just talking to people. People say, oh no, you don't have to invent history. But here are the facts right in front of you. Here are the facts about ancient civilization. You just mentioned about issues of religion. If you had these guys being popes and so forth in what we call the Dark Ages, who gave who religion? But look at the lies that I'm talking about, the lies that have been used to brainwash us. This is what makes these books very important, that they need to be read by everyone in this continent. They did not enlighten us. We enlightened the Europeans, and then they hid it. They conquered us with a gun, hid everything, and then turned it around and say, we are civilizing you. We are enlightening you. Before I say what I might regret, let me leave it there because I'm getting emotional. I'm getting emotional now. I am.
This is something that I grew up with a very, very powerful woman, Susan Finn. Yeah, she was a woman. Sometimes when we talk about just our childhood days, yeah, and she used to tell us about the apartheid time, what happened, and with the colonialism and everything. And we look at it, and she always said to us as children, it doesn't matter how long I live or how long you would live, don't ever fight bad with bad back. And sometimes it's very difficult not to do that, you know.
Yeah.
But I was just saying to somebody a few days ago as well, it's exactly what you are saying, Jamila. If we have to turn around what these people has done to us and also doing to us up till today, if we turn the other way around, it could be not such a nice story. But we as Africans, that's not us. Yeah, this is not the way we do things. So we do not fight bad with bad, and this we will give on to our children and onto our next generations to come, that when there is something happening, you find a solution and you go further. But you will take your space as an African to say and let people respect you for who you are. And until you have your space and you have your time to say, I'm African, I respect you, and I also demand that you respect me in the same manner. And if they don't, it is their problem, but you demand this respect that you give to them as well. Too long, we just walked away. Yeah, it's by time we stand up and demand our space, where we belong, what we are. And you know, we have been part of this global community for centuries. Look what this woman has dug out from all over Europe. We've been in there all along. Yeah. Who has done really this hard work as well in the back rooms, you know? But nobody talks about it. Nobody tells the story. I'm just looking. I'm just looking at now. I'm throwing the story away again with Beatrice. I'm just looking at the life of Dr. Hatzberger Fofana. She's a woman who's supposed to be in pension, but she has fought this journey for us as the African diaspora on her own. and ended up in the EU Parliament and fighting this. But not too many people are talking about it because they don't like that. And this is why we, as the African diaspora, are supporting her and saying, you know, we are glad that you have been making changes, not just for the African diaspora, but for the migrants living in Europe, you know. And I think, Jamila, this is great what you're doing, investing your time in Africans who are listening to us today, investing your time, Beatrice. It's not what you're doing. It's not like just a 1 hour job, you know, but you're investing so much time, investing in lives of our children. Yeah. And this is so important, our heritage.
So go ahead. Yes. So just to pick up from where you are, I agree with all what you're saying, except for one thing, Sis Cornelia. I did not go somewhere. I found this story somewhere. Some people have been documenting it, and there is there's in Germany there is a whole Black community. There's a very powerful Black community back in Austria as far back as the 2007, when I launched the first Black European Women's Council. We looked up to them. We looked up to them. There are people like what is her name again? Pache. That's her family name. There is Talia Della in Munich. There are a whole lot of African German
Too many
people that I look up to who have been doing amazing work, and I want to acknowledge them. Some of the profiles that I found on their website. I just bundled it all in one book. But there's so many people out there doing, you know, digging this history. It's not just me alone. And when we put it in a book, we're just expanding what they have been doing. We're just bringing in, you know, what they've been doing in another packaging and saying, hey, if, you know, maybe it's easier to get a book than to go online and do research. So I want to acknowledge all those people who are digging this history and putting it out there, and to encourage them to continue to do so. We all have to do this. We have the responsibility to do this, and because, again, when you look at why colonization happened, why enslavement happens, any logical person will know, had Africans been the good for nothing as we are portrayed to have been, they wouldn't have come to Africa to take Africans to go abroad and to build America and to build Europe. If there was nothing in Africa, they wouldn't have stayed for as long as they stayed. I mean, the colonialists, and they're still in today. It's because we have something. We must strive to look for that thing. What is that thing that they saw that they still seeing? You know, what is that thing that the great-grandparents saw that the great-grandchildren are still seeing in Africa? We must open our eyes to that. When you go to ancient civilization and you ask yourself, how was the empire of Mali, the empire of Ghana, the empire of Sondiata, and all of that? You go to the Kemet kingdom, ask yourself, why did the greatest Greek philosophers come to Egypt to learn philosophy and to learn other things? And then you ask yourself, what happened after they left, after they had learned? Okay, and if you want to find some clues, go to European museums. And when you see the relics that they have there, whether it is the score of, you know, the remains of what is, how can I forget? The remains of who are all our princesses from Egypt. Give me the names. Why does it escape my memory now? Too much stuff in my mind. You know,
Cleopatra is one of them.
The pharaohs, all of those. Where do you find them? In European and American museums, and that should give us to think. They took this away because they wanted to, you know, to erase the traces of where it come from, because they wanted to own it. There was something. What else was taken away? And why are all these things out there in the museums, in European and American museums, not in Africa? I mean, some people said we did not preserve it. But hey, if we are here and we're preserving it our way, Europe preserve things the way that they preserve. And just because it's not done the European or the American way doesn't mean that it is done wrong. So I just wish for us to be vigilant, to look and ask questions and try to understand, why is it that way? Why did colonization last so long in Africa? Why were so many Africans taken out of the continent and enslaved? And what contribution did they make? What tenacity do these people have? I mean, the people that we're talking today, when you read their profiles and you see where they come from, you see how resilient they were and how they contributed to Europe. And again, we're talking about, those who are gone. When I look into Europe today, there's so many people who are doing amazing work in all spheres of life, whether in the hospital, whether in taking care of elderly people, whether in households, in schools, in academia. You see all the great Africans who have a mind, where do they end up? They end up in American university. And you're asking yourself the question, what happened here? And so when you look at the master plan of colonization, you realize it was a plan that destroyed. And after the destruction and even after independence, the master plan is still in place that allowed some of our leaders to behave the way they behave, so that those who are intellectuals, those who can bring change, those who can ask questions, you end up paradoxically going back to the oppressors where you find freedom. And you know that out there you can't blossom the way you could if you were on the continent. So being out there and thinking that you have freedom, it's a space that is limiting you. So it is pseudo freedom. You can do a little bit, and then you're in that environment, and you can only teach what the environment allows you to teach. You can't teach what you are capable of teaching or what you know. So it is still another form of mental enslavement to say you can only survive out there. So you have to leave Africa because you're persecuted, and you have to go live in Europe or in America. It's an illusion to believe that you can really blossom fully out there. So the little freedom that you have is still maybe a small percentage of what you are capable of had you been in a space that allowed you to be your true self. So I just wish that the generation that is growing up, that you're aware of this, that you don't get fooled by the fact that, you're in a continent that probably gives you freedom. Ask, why does this continent give me freedom? I'm in the same continent that persecuted my ancestors, that ruined my legacy for so many years, that's distorted my history for so many years. Why do I believe that I can be free in this, in their space? Why do they accept me? Why do they give me a visa to come stay here, as a refugee and all of that? It's because you're in a system that will continue to, give you just a small window, just a little piece of what you can be, a little piece of the masterpiece that you are. That's what you can do there. So that's the reason why I write these books, just to make us aware. We must be more vigilant. We must be more curious to understand the spaces that we are allowed in. For what purpose? What will you do if you were in another space? I'm telling my story because had I stayed in Austria, I wouldn't have written these books. And I was out there for 20 years. All what I could do was anti-racism. I went there to study, but before I realized, I was made an anti-racism expert. So you keep trying to fix a system that is put in place. And that's all that you can do to acknowledge. I got 16 nominations and 14 awards for doing anti-racism work and diversity, when I should be doing something else. I was born a creator, not a fixer. I keep repeating this. So when you realize the power of who you are, what were you put in this world for? Some people go without realizing it, but it's never too late. When you realize the powers of who you can truly be and how you can use that to grow within, because I write these books first for myself, grow within, and because you're growing and people see you growing, they will automatically want to emulate. I think that is for me the most important thing to do. And that's the reason for which I write this book. That's the reason for which I put in this time. This is the reason for which I put the manuscript up there if you want to have them up there. I may not be able, the financial side may still be very, very down. But I think we're talking about a legacy here. And it is a picture that is bigger than money. In as much as, I want to sell the books and earn money and pay my bills because I have tons of them. I want us to also have a big picture in there to say it's much bigger. It's not about just me here. It's not about my ego. It's about a cause that is much, much bigger. Steve Biko gave up his life. Thomas Sankara, Kwame Nkrumah, all of those great people, they left something for us. So the question is, what are we going to leave behind when our time comes? So I'm writing this just to ignite that conversation, to say, what would people be calling my name for? Today we call Mandela because he sacrificed something. We call all of those names. So is someone going to call your name when you're no longer here? Is someone going to remember you, and what for? And I think that is for me what legacy is all about. That is for me the essence of being alive. I learned that very late, when I had to leave Europe. But I'm glad that I left Europe, that I was able to come here and just be myself and tap into that, that gift that I was given. And to be able to write this, I mean, writing 19 books for schools in less than 4 years, I don't know how I do it. Since Jamila asked me and I said, it's just being delivered and I accept. So when you find your purpose, when you step into it, when you accept it, it calls, so many things happen. You're just the channel through which things are being channeled. You're just a messenger. I can't say I'm the author of this book. I'm just the messenger. So, stop talking, Beatrice.
She is really full of energy and giving it all out to us.
So, Geraldine
Hallelujah.
says,
Yes.
So,
You said it all. I don't know if you want to just add a little bit in terms of your access to this material. I see we are over time, but Cornelia, what do you think?
I just want to give a last word. We in the month of Heritage Month, this month, yes? And Beatrice has started great with this month to let us know. And this month, you know what? We don't have to go anywhere. We have tablets, we have smartphones, we have our PCs at home. All this education, what you are getting here, it's only a click away. It's only a click away. I had to go sit in the libraries to educate myself for hours until they threw me out of the library. Now you guys actually have no excuse. So do something for yourself. You're getting it here on a silver plate for nothing. Yes? Educate yourself with this information and this time that all of us are investing in you, and do yourself something really good for this month and go get one of these books. They're actually only a click away. So do something, invest in yourself, and go through this library of beautiful books that she's taken her time with to write, and invest in yourself and get 1 or 2 or even 3. And Christmas is around the corner, so you might as well start shopping now for your list of friends that need these books.
Amanda.
Where to?
Yes, Miss Jamila, your word before we round it up.
I was actually after your last talk, I thought I don't want to really dilute this. That's why I was like, just end that note with how do we access all this material that we've just spoken about. I mean, I don't want to dilute what your conclusion.
Okay, so let me go say, Sis Geraldine, we see you say you're well, but Washington is not. We're sending positive African energies and vibrations to Washington. May you all stay safe and positive. We're sending all the all the energies that we have here over to you. She says oppressors do not give up easily, so we must change. Oppressors do not give up easily. We must write our history. And then we have Ponky joining us, Ponky Makwanazi. I hope I pronounce it properly. She says,
that's my Mohadivo.
Okay.
That's my sister-in-law.
I acknowledge you, and I want to agree with my two sisters, my two amazing sisters. Thank you for taking the time to, hang out with me. You could have been doing something else. I know you all are busy and you're on your jobs, so I appreciate this. The books, you can find them on www.globuntubooks.com. And I did something last night. I was up until 2:30 a.m. because I wanted to set up the WooCommerce. So we now have a shop. On globuntubooks.com. So when you go in there, look at the books and then go into the shop, we have a lot of offers. And just like Sis Cornelia said, we have a lot of, how do we call it? Discount. There are a lot of books on sale because we want you to start shopping now through, towards the time of Christmas. Some of them, some books are on sale, some are not. So you want to watch them. And, if you're getting a 20% discount, every week the discount goes down. So the earlier you buy, the cheaper you get them. And by the end of next week, you should have a lot of downloadable games, games and interactive PDFs that you can, buy straight online, and you can print it, and then you can work from wherever you are, have fun on the Christmas tree with your children, you know. And if you can't buy the books, please sit down with your children and tell them the story of your family. Tell them about your great-grandparent. Tell them about your grandparent. Tell them about your parent. Tell them about where you come from. That's where history starts. And maybe in telling them that story, they will get interest in learning more. And who knows, you know, when you go into the house of history, there's so much that you'll find. I'm speaking from experience. I went into the house of history.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Showed book 1 of Africa for Smart Kids, and look at where I am today. So you never know what you find in the house of history, but what I can promise you, it will be something additive, something that will empower you so much. So as Sis Cornelia said, and my sister Jamila, these videos are out there. We do it live stream and keep it on the stream, so you can come back whenever your time allows. We're not taking them down anytime. You can utilize this material. There's a lot of content in there. And so we encourage you to do just that. We are not yet done. Tomorrow we're coming back with Black Wisdom. You don't want to miss that one. And this Black Wisdom goes all the way from Africa, the whole continent, right through. We don't go to Europe because we've done Europe today. So we go to the US and we go to the Caribbean in search of Black wisdom. So we're looking for great people, you know, the great leaders that we had, some of the great leaders that we had, and listening to what they said. What is it that they said? What is it that they left behind for us? And when you listen to some of the wisdom, you will ask yourself, had we listened to this 10 years ago, where we will be? But we don't want to look back. We're looking forward. We're looking forward and pretending as if life is beginning today. So we can encourage you to be your best self, step into your masterpiece, and be, you know, let your greatness blossom. Until we see you tomorrow when we talk about Black wisdom. And after Black wisdom, there is another plan. If you want to work out, this space is not going to die. There's so much coming up. So that was it. Thank you, sisters. Thank you to those of you online and those of you who will join www.globuntubooks.com, and you'll find a whole lot of interesting resources there for you. Thank you, sisters.
Food for the mind.
Yes. Thank you so much for having us.